Virginia is one of the few states where early American history still exists in real places. Not just in books. The surprising part is how accessible it is. Some of these locations are near neighborhoods and routes people travel every day. Most people pass them without realizing their significance. These areas are not remote, they're easy to reach, and often unrecognized for what they represent. In Mabry Mill, a historic grist mill was built to serve local communities along the Blue Ridge Parkway, and it remains a functioning example of how water-powered systems supported daily life. At Henricus, a reconstructed colonial site stands on original ground, showing what early settlement life looked like before the country became established. Many of these places have been part of local life for generations, even as fewer people could explain why they mattered. And some are now at risk as the land itself begins to disappear. Union Level is one of the state's most overlooked communities, with a short main street of abandoned storefronts and a few lived-in homes nearby. It grew around farm trade and travel routes, then declined when landowners refused to sell property for tobacco warehouses, pushing larger trade to other towns. The main street once held a bank, dance hall, hotel, motorcycle dealer, and several shops in a compact strip. Many storefronts have living quarters upstairs, which allowed shopkeepers to work below and live above in the same building. Online, it is hyped as a must-see ghost town, but others arrive, smell decay, see warnings, and leave fast, saying there is not much to see except danger. Shenandoah National Park is a long protected mountain strip with a road along the ridge that lets regular cars reach views that once took all-day climbs. Parts of the peaks are called islands in the sky because certain plants and salamanders here live nowhere else on Earth. Some high ridges grow flagged trees, bent and pruned only on one side by constant wind, which makes whole tree lines point in a single direction. These twisted vegetation became informal trail markers that hikers use instead of signs. Moreover, these mountains allegedly have a wood booger, a tall, hairy, Bigfoot-like figure seen crossing trails or standing among trees. Although no one has seen it yet, except the species that spend much of their time high in the canopy, like the Scarlet Tanager. These are forest songbirds that remain in the upper parts of the mountain. Males have vivid bodies with contrasting wings. From below, they resemble flowers caught in shadows. They often walk along branches and climb trunks to probe bark for insects, instead of flying from branch to branch. These birds can hover with rapid wing beats to capture insects from leaves and flowers, even seizing bees and wasps directly in midair. Females build flimsy, shallow nests in small branch forks, often distant from trunks, making them difficult to spot from beneath. Among foliage, they are more often heard than seen. Birdwatchers listen for rough songs to locate them. In forested areas near Natural Bridge, they perch quietly in the canopy, above visitors who rarely notice them among the leaves. This site is a large rock arch, left as a stone roof over a creek, created when a cave tunnel partly collapsed, leaving a single opening. It is a sacred place for the Monacan people, who linked it to a major battle victory and treated the arch as a source of power. Its gorge walls below rise almost straight up, which can make voices and water noises bounce oddly. A small saltpeter cave near the bridge once provided mineral deposits used for early gunpowder, and the hillside soil fed both farming and warfare materials. In addition, a Baptist church is located in the park area and has utilised the site and the rock structure's prominence to host worship services and gatherings. Mabry Mill, on the Blue Ridge Parkway, often shares visitor trips with Natural Bridge as a paired stone arch and mill route. This workshop complex once ran as a small one-stop service centre for isolated farms. It was built with water diverted from two nearby streams into an intricate system, leaving behind one of the state's most photographed and time-worn structures. Locals would bring corn to be ground, along with broken farm tools, wagon parts and metal pieces, turning the mill yard into a trading point. Before modern roads, reaching the next town for similar services took over a day, making the mill function like a small rural town centre. Furthermore, its surrounding cliffs and ridges are part of the habitat where the Peregrine falcon has been reintroduced. This bird can high dive from the sky, folding its wings and dropping in a stoop to strike prey mid-air. Special bony structures in its nostrils help manage air pressure, allowing it to breathe at speeds that would harm many other animals. By aiming a closed foot at one wing of its target, it stuns prey without injuring itself on impact. Sharp eyesight also lets it spot moving birds from afar, and it adjusts its dive angle using tail and wing flicks like a guided dart. This falcon usually nests on high cliffs or tall buildings, hunting pigeons and other city birds with the same dive it uses in canyons. It also dives over valleys and roads in the hills near Lexington. This site is a small town that was nearly wiped out once by a major fire, forcing residents to rebuild blocks of structures and street fronts from the ground up. Athletic fields, drill grounds and parade areas lie within walking distance of bars, shops and churches, allowing cadets and students to move from formation to social life in a few blocks. Town residents used to watch them march off to help guard and then later fight in battles, turning them into frontline fighters. Invading troops shelled and occupied the town, burned a military school, and looted classrooms in the main college. After the war, opening a school for formerly enslaved people led to threats of mob violence, and officials warned teachers they could be attacked. Black families raised funds and donated land, and a few white residents, including religious groups, allowed the schools, especially when they were church-run. Virginia has more caves than any other US state, with over 4,000 known and many more unexplored. One of the most visited is Luray Caverns. It was first accessed through a hand-dug hole above a cool air sinkhole, and the discoverers kept it secret to buy the land cheaply. However, a later court case voided the deal, leaving them without legal control. Some sections of the ceiling drip slowly, and locals believed that water falling from them, a cave kiss, brought good luck for the year. Some stalagmites were accidentally broken by workers and remain as smooth, flat discs, now called fried eggs. At one point, a young person's skeleton was found in a chasm, possibly having fallen from a burial collapse above. The site later inspired a sci-fi game and now hosts attached museums with odd items like a dog-powered butter churn. Barboursville ruins are the remains of a brick mansion designed in a Neo-Palladian style, now standing as roofless walls and columns on an active vineyard. The house burned in a fire on a holiday morning. After the fire, the family moved back into the smaller brick service buildings and lived in their back-of-house spaces instead of rebuilding the grand home. Later owners chose to keep the ruins rather than clear them, turning a burned family disaster into a planned focal point for visitors. Stabilisation work had to pin and brace cracked walls, and parts of the ruin are now held up by hidden modern supports inside the old brick. Jamestown Island is the location of the first permanent English settlement, with remains of James Fort and later town layers stacked in the soil. Parts of the original structure lay under farm fields and a Civil War earthwork. Archaeologists traced its outline from soil stains and post holes, revealing the first defended settlement from mere colour changes in the dirt. The island's brackish setting meant colonists sometimes drank water mixed with salty river flow, which worsened sickness instead of relieving it. Additionally, evidence from bones and written accounts shows people in the settlement ate horses, dogs, cats, rats, and even shoe leather during the worst hunger period. Northern mockingbirds now loon on rails around the island, singing from brush where those who lived there once struggled for basic survival. These medium-sized songbirds have grey upperparts, pale undersides, and white flashes on their wings and tails. Their songs include copies of many other birds, plus sounds like alarms and machinery, stacked into long, repeated sequences. Exposed spots such as fence tops or roof peaks are often used to project their sound across open areas. Territories are defended with fast chases and dive attacks on larger animals, including pets and people that get too close to nests. Insects make up most of their diet, though they switch to berries and small fruits when these are ripe, moving through shrubs and leaf piles to find food. Frystown is a mill community on a sharp bend of the New River, built so that a factory and dam could control jobs and power for the area. Grid, houses and stores were laid out to face the textile plant. The firm built about 300 houses, a commissary, and a post office in one push. Pay often came through the stores, and some families ended each month owing money back to the same business that had just paid them. A major flood once nearly destroyed the factory, and residents had to fight rising water with sandbags and repairs to keep the only industry alive. Additionally, a flu epidemic hit the packed settlement hard, turning tight-knit streets into rows of sick houses that relied on the same doctor and support. When global competition hit textiles, outside owners chose not to modernise Fry's, slowly starving operations of upgrades until the shutdown felt sudden to workers on the floor. Great Falls Park occupies one of the most dangerous short stretches of water in the region, where calm upstream flow can turn into lethal churning channels. Park staff and residents repeat the warning: if you enter the channel, you will not live, as even strong swimmers are pulled under by recirculating currents, unseen from shore. Rangers track danger days, when warm weather, low water, and weekends coincide, because drownings rise when crowds think the channel is safe. Rescue records describe people who slipped from dry rock, vanished, and were found days later far downstream, showing how quickly the Potomac moves through the gorge. During the record 1930s, flood debris and structures floated past this area, and downstream cities built emergency levees to keep water off major districts. Along shaded streams and rocky banks near the falls, ebony dual-winged damselflies flash black wings and metallic bodies over water altered by floods and canal work. It is a large damselfly with a metallic green or blue body and solid dark wings that look almost opaque up close. At rest, it holds its wings straight up over the body like a closed fan, unlike dragonflies that keep their wings spread flat. It hunts by perching near water, then darting out to grab soft-bodied flying insects and chewing them with sharp mouthparts in mid-air or on a leaf. Larvae live in slow streams and grab prey with a long, hinged lower lip that shoots out to snatch aquatic insects and small fish. Three external gills at the tip of the larval abdomen act as both breathing organs and steering fins in the water. Adults often patrol shaded creek stretches, where their wings and metallic bodies make them look like floating pieces of metal over the current. Around the Potomac Canal, ruins these damselflies can rest on wet stones and cut walls, hunting insects that once inhabited channels dug for boats. This site, built under George Washington's direction, is an early attempt to turn the Potomac into a business highway. Engineers cut about 3/4 of a mile of canal through rock, building 5 stone locks, a holding basin, guard gates, and a wing dam to control water. Workers used early blasting powder to break through solid rock, one of the first large engineering jobs to rely on controlled explosions. The canal scheme was meant to link inland trade all the way to areas like the Jamestown settlement region, connecting river freight to older coastal markets. However, the structure failed financially and was dismantled. White-tailed deer now walk along berms and lock tops as casual paths, using their tails and ears to watch for danger in a place once risky only for boats. These are medium deer with brown fur and long tails that show white when lifted. It flips up when danger is sensed, flashing white as a signal that other deer can see while running. Antlers grow and are shed on a yearly cycle, forming new branched bone that can change size and pattern each season. Fawns are born with spotted fur and low scent, and they hide alone in grass or leaves while adults feed nearby. They walk on the tips of their hooves, which lets them move quietly through brush and jump obstacles with quick pushes. They feed on leaves, twigs, crops and garden plants, shifting diet with the seasons and often grazing at edges where forest meets open ground. Red Ash was a full coal town that ended with a mine blast strong enough to carry miners straight from the tunnel to hill graves. The explosion was followed by a smallpox wave, leaving the town hit by underground fire and deadly disease almost back to back. A screaming lady on the tracks is said to appear in white and vanish when approached, blamed on a mother who lost her children to illness. Drivers also describe strange headlights behind them near the rail line that suddenly disappear, fueling stories of a ghost train pacing the cars. Moreover, paranormal groups claim to capture disembodied voices, saying names and numbers beside child graves. Chincoteague is part of Virginia's disappearing island story, which has already lost entire islands in the Chesapeake Bay. Storm surges here can push water inland and temporarily reverse drainage. They have cut new inlets and erased old ones near Chincoteague, which makes maps from different decades show different outlines for the same area. Fishing and crabbing from the island have long-shaped local diets, with families living on seafood, so they cannot truly fear the water. The island is known for a herd of wild ponies that is sent across the channel from nearby Assateague in a yearly swim event. The Misty of Chincoteague book and film turned one of them into a national figure, bringing tourists who still look for descendants of that horse. In the marsh and ponds near the island, the glossy ibis seems to judge this attention from its fellow animal. It is a wading bird with a long, thin, curved bill and feathers that shine green and purple in good light. It feeds by sweeping its bill through shallow water and mud, feeling for insects, worms, small crabs, and other prey instead of looking. Often walking through tall marsh grass with only the neck and bill showing, it probes blindly for food below the surface. The eyes are high on the head, giving a wide side view, while the bill works straight down in murky water. Nesting occurs in dense colonies with other water birds, where stick nests are hidden in thick vegetation above wet ground. When flushed, the bird can launch suddenly and fly low over reeds, legs trailing and bill pointing forward like a bent spear. In coastal marshes, glossy ibis may pick through debris for small animals hiding among the washed-up remains, including shells and bodies of Atlantic horseshoe crabs. These funky species have hard domed shells, long pointed tail spines, and 5 pairs of walking legs tucked under their bodies. The tails are not weapons but levers, used to flip the bodies upright when waves roll them onto their backs on sand or in shallow water. Under the shells, rows of spiny leg parts shred food toward the mouths, making the animals chew with their walking hands. They have multiple eyes on top and along their edges, plus light sensors underneath, allowing them to detect changes even when buried. They feed on worms, clams, and other small animals in mud, ploughing forward and scooping food into the centres of their legs. During spawning, many individuals pile together on beaches, with shells stacked in layers as they move up and down the tide line. Henricus Historical Park is a reconstructed colonial town and native site on a bluff above the James River at the colony's second town. The site marks where English colonists moved upriver from Jamestown to higher, healthier ground while keeping river access. Costumed interpreters often demonstrate how colonists lived in cramped timber houses with dirt floors, open hearths, and shared sleeping spaces. Children's programs also teach chores like hauling water, scraping hides, and planting, which were basic survival tasks on this ridge. In addition, an early hospital called Mount Malady was reconstructed to show how colonists treated disease with simple beds and herbal care. Lebanon is a small mountain town that grew from a courthouse stop into a tight cluster of streets ringed by steep, foggy hills and back roads. It was picked as the county seat because it stood on a hill with strong, never-failing springs. The town name was chosen because early settlers thought the cedar trees here matched stories they knew about groves in faraway lands. Church circuits once used it as a six-point hub, with preachers riding long loops, bringing news and stories that mixed worship with frontier gossip. The first courthouse site was given on the condition that a temple of justice be built there, which turned it into a permanent law centre. Its hill layout means storms can circle the lower ground, while the main square stays oddly clear and dry for short bursts. During the coal boom, Lebanon was filled with professionals and businesses connected to distant mines, and courtroom deals influenced events in camps miles away. Virginia Beach is a large coastal city built on sandbars, inlets and farmland, now packed with resort strips, neighbourhoods and military zones. It occupies a coast once called part of the Graveyard of the Atlantic. A stranded cargo ship remained stuck off the beach, so long that a couple moved in and used it as a summer home before it finally floated free. Early resort ads bragged about sea cures, yet lifeguards see shore stacks of shipwrecks from sudden storms offshore. Ghost stories claim lost pirate crews still patrol the waterline at First Landing State Park, searching for buried treasure and scattered remains. Beach patrol staff have also logged calls about a lone figure walking into the ocean and vanishing, with no missing swimmer recorded afterward. Loggerhead sea turtles occasionally nest along nearby beaches, placing fragile eggs in sand only metres away from resort lights and traffic. It is a large marine reptile with a broad head, strong jaws, and a thick, rough shell. Its jaws can crush hard-shelled prey like crabs and conchs, turning armoured food into bite-sized pieces. The front flippers act like powerful paddles, driving the turtle forward in steady strokes, while the rear flippers steer and help dig nests. The shell's texture often hosts barnacles and algae, giving the turtle a moving patch of sea life on its back. When disturbed, it can jerk and twist strongly, using its shell as both armour and a battering surface against predators. Off the coast near Pungo village, loggerheads move past inlets, diving and surfacing in waters tied to a witch legend. This settlement is known as the place where a resident was jailed and publicly tested as a witch. Neighbours accused her of ruining crops, killing livestock, and sending animal-shaped spirits into homes, all based on bad luck and rumours. The Witch of Pungo case ended with a ducking in nearby waters, where crowds watched to see if the accused would sink or float as a test. Local law says she slipped out of the bonds and swam to shore. Church members at Tabernacle UMC say the witch walked home and lived quietly for decades, passing former accusers on narrow roads. The brown pelican glides over nearby waterways, passing above fields and roads that still carry the Witch of Pungo's name. It is a coastal seabird with a long bill and an expandable throat pouch used as a built-in dip net. It dives from the air, folding wings and slamming headfirst into the water, then uses the pouch to scoop fish and drain water before swallowing. The skin stretches to hold a large volume, then tightens as water is forced out, leaving only trapped prey. After feeding, it uses its bill to comb and align feathers, spreading waterproof oils to keep its plumage ready for more plunges. The bird's forward-set eyes give good depth sense for timing dives, helping it judge exactly when to hit schools of fish. Near Cape Henry Lighthouse, brown pelicans can be seen flying in lines along the coast, passing a tower that once guided ships through the same waters they hunt. It is a navigation tower to Major Bay entrance, where an older stone lighthouse and a newer metal one guide ships from the same point of land. The old structure was the first federal coastal light built after independence, tying national power directly to this headland. The newer one was built because cracks and concerns about the previous tower made a stronger replacement necessary, yet the old one remained standing as a relic. During wars, the light pattern could be changed or dimmed to confuse enemy ships. South along the same coast is Washwood's Ghost Town, a drowned settlement. Tell the story of people who tried to live in the storm path. It is inside a state park, remembered mainly by a lone church steeple and graveyard. The community lived between the ocean and swamp with no road access, reaching the nearest towns only by boat or long sand treks. Buildings were made from cypress lumber salvaged from a wrecked ship, and disaster debris became the town's main construction supply. The area's storms repeatedly flooded streets and homes, giving the place its Washwoods name because waters kept washing over the land. Cemetery stones record family names repeated across generations, showing how people kept raising children in a place that constantly threatened their homes. The abandoned Virginia Renaissance Fair is a decaying fake village in the woods, built to look like a kingdom town, and left with all its stages and shops still in place. It was once packed with costumed actors, staged sword fights, and music, then suddenly went quiet, leaving full streets of props to rot like a paused play. Tudor-style timber buildings, conical towers, painted signs, and even a fake wall now lean, crack, and sink into the ground. After closure, the site was leased to a hunt club, and knights and jesters were replaced by hunters crossing the same streets with real weapons. Cameras are now hidden along the paths and near the train tracks because constant trespassing turned the fake village into a monitored no-go zone. Richmond is a forced trade choke point river city built around rapids and falls where boats once had to unload and reload cargo. The fall line created an early power source for mills and factories and industry crowded the riverbanks, while calmer stretches below carried finished goods away. The city grew into a major slave trade hub, with more than 50 firms buying and selling people within a few blocks. Local jail held people in cramped cells, with a whipping room where victims were chained to the floorings for punishment. After the trade ended, the prison area was buried under fill and rail yards, hiding the cruelty beneath an industrial yard for decades. It later served as a Confederate capital, and evacuation fires set to destroy supplies burned large parts of the business district. Maymont Park, on a hill above the river, is a former private Victorian estate turned public park. The owners willed the entire property and house to the city, turning a private luxury home directly into a public space, rather than selling or splitting it. Its Italian garden uses terraced stonework, fountains and statuary modelled after European villas, built to impress guests approaching from the riverside. The Japanese section includes a small lake, arched bridges, and stone lanterns, created when imported garden styles were a status symbol. An arboretum on the grounds holds many tree species, some rare, tagged for visitors to see how many types fit in one estate. The park hosts frequent weddings and events that place modern crowds in garden layouts originally designed for elite parties. Monarch butterflies also use the area and nearby fields as fuel stops. This species has orange wings with thick black veins and white dots that act as a clear warning to predators. The patterns on the wings are so consistent that scientists tag and track individuals by placing tiny stickers directly on those panels. Monarchs complete a long migration in relay, with several generations taking turns, so the butterfly that returns is not the same one that left. The head carries long antennae that help sense the sun's position and the Earth's magnetic field, guiding flight even when clouds block the sky. The tongue is a long, coiled tube that unrolls into flowers, letting the butterfly drink nectar while hovering or lightly clinging to petals. In flight, a monarch can switch between gliding and flapping to save energy, allowing large groups to move long distances together like a slow orange cloud. Along the James River corridor, monarchs also pause by riversides to feed on its flowers. Native groups once used this area as their main food and travel line, building villages and fields near bends that offered fish, crops and defence. At its peak, a reserve fleet here packed in many ships, which made it look like a parked armada waiting for a secret war. Several on the James were sunk on purpose to block enemy movement, and parts of the channel still hide burned or blasted hulls under the mud. Shipwreck hunters searched this waterway for lost Navy vessels, blockade craft, and ruined steamers, treating the channel floor like a layered war archive. One well-known vessel blew apart and was run ashore in panic, leaving confusion over its final location. Clues tied it to Hog Point, which later vanished from modern maps. The only probable witness to this event is the eastern screech owl, watching at night from forest patches and hollow trees nearby. This small owl has large, forward-facing eyes and ear tufts that break up the head outline against tree bark. Its feathers can be grey or reddish, with streaks that match bark patterns closely, giving the bird the look of part of the trunk. When alarmed, it extends tall, flattens its feathers, and freezes, turning into a narrow stick form on a tree side. The call is not a loud hoot, but a soft trill or descending whinny, which can sound more like a strange whirring toy than a typical owl. At night, this hunter takes insects, small mammals and birds, using silent flight to drop from tree cavities and branches onto moving prey. Abandoned woodpecker holes often become nest sites, turning unused tree cavities into nurseries and daytime hiding spots. Around Hollywood Cemetery, the owl can remain almost invisible on rough bark trees, calling over graves and paths, while most visitors never spot it. This large terraced burial ground holds the graves of 2 presidents and a former Confederate president, which made it a compact catalogue of national power. The grounds also contain foreign sailors and war casualties far from their home countries. A massive pyramid of rough stone honours thousands of Confederate soldiers whose remains rest in mass graves nearby. The curving drives and viewpoints were designed to create scenic carriage routes, and people once used it as both a burial ground and a Sunday outing place. Several steep drops lead from grave sites down to the riverbank, and some headstones stand only a short walk from active train tracks and water. Large, ornate family plots show how wealthy households built private mini-yards with iron fences and custom sculptures inside the wider grounds. Rosewell Plantation ruins are the remains of a once grand brick mansion near the York River, now reduced to tall outer walls, chimneys, and scattered foundations. The house burned in a nighttime fire that gutted the interior and drop roofs and floors, leaving only a shell of brick and stone standing. It was built with a formal central block and flanking wings. Enslaved labour once powered the plantation's crops and household work, yet most of their living quarters and personal spaces have vanished above ground. Oral accounts describe secret meetings and planning sessions at Rosewell that helped develop early revolutionary ideas. Pulaski catered to its first large religious group, the Dunkards, a mystic sect that tried to build a secluded village at Dunkard Bottom, a place now drowned under Claytor Lake. The town later grew into a textile centre, with mills and hosiery works lining streets, leaving whole families' incomes dependent on a single factory block. Its name traces to a foreign cavalry hero whose final fate was disputed, with years of debate over burial at sea or on land. The county timeline records violent raids alongside notes on land grants and ferries. Tornado paths have also cut straight through neighbourhoods more than once, shredding streets that residents had just rebuilt after earlier storms. Risk maps rank the area as exposed to multiple threats at once: floods, storms and crime, giving the town an unusually dense hazard list for its size. Yorktown Battlefield is the preserved ground where a siege forced a major surrender and effectively ended large-scale fighting in the Revolution. The earthworks were dug and reshaped under bombardment, so some of the quiet grassy ridges now mark former gun lines pounded by artillery. Siege parallels, trenches and redoubts trace the slow crawl of attacking forces as they moved closer, while shells and musket fire swept the gaps. Cannon platforms once pointed across the same river mile that the modern Coleman Bridge now spans with a double-swing steel structure. It is the largest one in the country, with huge chunks of roadway rotating open where warships and supply boats once sailed. Charlottesville is a college town and regional hub where campus life, court politics and plantation history collide in a tight radius. It once held regular slave auctions in Court Square, where people were sold outside taverns, hotels and the courthouse, and even from a tree stump. Enslaved residents called monthly court day dreaded, because it meant families could be broken up and shipped away in a single afternoon. A black man was even lynched just outside the town after being taken off a train by a mob, and people later cut pieces from his body and the tree as souvenirs. The same city that marketed itself as a quiet college town also hid this lynching for generations, only recently adding a public marker that names him. In 2017, Charlottesville streets turned into a modern battle zone when white supremacists marched with torches and weapons, and one of them ran a car into a counter-protester. Local activists later doxed many marchers, getting them fired or expelled, and the town's response carried consequences far beyond the rally night. Monticello is on a small mountain just outside town. It is a house built as a personal experiment in design, where almost every room contains some custom gadget or trick feature. The owner rose before sunrise to walk the long terrace alone every day, using the same exact route as a moving thinking routine. He also kept daily weather logs, crop notes and visitor lists, turning the estate into a long-running personal data project. Monticello was planned and replanned over decades, with designs redrawn and extensions added frequently. The estate at one point held nailworks, small factories, and specialised workshops, so the mountaintop functioned like a small industrial town wrapped around a big house. Devil's Bathtub is a small scour pool on Devil's Fork of Stony Creek, known for a clear, oddly shaped basin in solid rock. It got its name because early hikers said the pool looked calm, but grabbed people with sudden cold and slick walls once they tried to get out. After the place went viral, some residents started calling it Devil's Waiting Room, because rescue teams kept hauling out injured visitors each busy season. Better swimming holes in the area get far fewer visitors, while this single pool draws lines of people because of its name and photos. Additionally, storms can flip the creek from ankle-deep to roaring, and people often hear boulders roll under the water, while the surface still looks strangely smooth. Roanoke is a rail-borne city that grew from a sleepy junction into a major transport hub quickly, earning the nickname Magic City. Past mixed rail yards, factories, and tight worker housing so closely that smoke, whistles, and shift changes set the daily clock for entire neighbourhoods. Shops here built and repaired heavy locomotives, with whole streets depending on one complex where engines were assembled, rebuilt and scrapped. The city shifted from a dirty rail town to an outdoor tourism base, using nearby trails and riverfront to promote the hills. During hard times, the steep climb to Mill Mountain became a test of fitness and pride, with families joking about earning the view with sore legs. Roanoke kept its rail lines and then added highway and air access, and became a regional hub where 3 major travel modes meet around one valley. Its nickname Star City comes from a hilltop sign, not from any sports team or industry, which is unusual for a mid-sized rail town. The Mill Mountain Star is the largest freestanding illuminated man-made star built high on a city mountain as an oversized holiday decoration that never got packed away. Merchants originally funded it as a publicity trick to pull shoppers into downtown. The star has been switched off, dimmed, or recoloured after major tragedies, and has become a kind of public emotional meter. Groundhogs on Mill Mountain dig burrows in slopes near the overlook, living everyday lives under a sign built to shout the city's name into the sky. This chunky rodent has strong front claws and sharp chisel teeth built to dig and slice plant stems. It creates multi-room burrows with separate sleeping, nesting, and waste chambers, using earth tunnels like an underground house. A thick neck and sturdy shoulders let it push soil out of tunnels, while fresh dirt mounds mark active entrances. It often pauses at a burrow mouth, staring up and sniffing before fully emerging, checking for danger with eyes and nose at the same time. It can hold leaves and stems in its forepaws, calmly chewing near the entrance, while ready to drop and vanish underground. In rocky or hilly areas, it may use stone outcrops and root caves as starter holes, turning cracks into expanded tunnel homes. Known as Zion Lutheran Church, the old church ruins occupy a rural hilltop worship area with an active cemetery and a long chain of vanished buildings. The congregation used multiple meeting houses on roughly the same ground, with earlier sanctuaries replaced over time. The current church includes pews salvaged from an earlier destroyed building. Louisa County Courthouse is the prominent legal centre of Louisa, born as a small courthouse village that grew outward from its court building. The first site doubled as storage, and even a stable when one owner used the public buildings for private purposes, angering residents. Locals once petitioned to move the courthouse because the owner's misuse and weight made it hard for him to travel if the court shifted away. It was rebuilt in the early 19th century, and the surrounding village took on the name. During the Civil War, federal troops raided it and removed records, leaving gaps in the county's official memory. Hospitals for wounded soldiers were then set up in and around the vicinity, and nearby buildings during the Trevilian Station fighting. Later, a new classical revival courthouse replaced the earlier building. Pamplin City is a near ghost rail town where almost the entire brick main street is abandoned, while trains no longer stop at the junction that once made it boom. The place was created as a meeting point of two major rail lines, and for a while, almost every building on Main Street depended on train traffic. A major fire wiped out previous wooden buildings, and the current row of brick storefronts was built as a fresh start after the blaze. When rail travel dropped, the banks, hotels and stores closed in waves, leaving signs and facades, but almost no active businesses. The old depot is one of the only active structures downtown, making the former transport lifeline one of the last working pieces. Norfolk has one of the world's largest naval bases next to busy civilian docks, stacking warships and cargo in the same harbour. The city's growth is tied directly to its deep water harbour, which lets massive fleets anchor within view of downtown neighbourhoods. Naval Station Norfolk became the main base for the Atlantic Fleet, turning the shoreline into a deployment point for multiple global conflicts. Massive shipyards here built, repaired and refitted ships for major wars. The harbour has seen submarine pens, aircraft carriers and amphibious ships all operating from its broad estuary. Wartime expansion swallowed nearby land, replacing neighbourhoods and fields with piers, runways and fuel tanks. Pods of bottlenose dolphins often trail or cross busy ship lanes nearby, weaving through wakes in a port built around steel hulls and sonar gear. These are sturdy marine mammals with short, rounded snouts and curved dorsal fins that help steer in tight manoeuvres. Bursts of powerful tail strokes launch them into fast swims and high leaps. Then they glide to conserve energy between efforts. A beak-like nose hides an advanced sonar system that sends clicks and reads returning echoes to locate fish and objects in murky water. Groups often travel in coordinated formations, matching speed and direction so closely that movements appear choreographed when turning or diving together. Fish and squid form their main diet, with schools sometimes herded into tight balls or driven toward the surface for easier capture. Social behaviour includes complex whistles and body signals, with individuals recognising specific call patterns from others in the group. Carlisle House sat at the centre of a town where war leaders once met in its parlour and decided to drag colonial troops into a distant global fight. During that meeting, officers agreed to demand supplies and soldiers from colonies that had no real say in the decision, and the living room became a spark for later revolt. The house was built with costly imported stone and finishes, while enslaved workers lived and laboured on the same lot, combining extreme wealth and forced labour in one small space. When war later reached the town, the army seized Carlisle House, threw the owners out, and turned their elegant rooms into a military hospital and quarters. Chapman Beverley Mill is a tall stone gristmill ruin beside a gap at thoroughfare. During heavy fighting there, soldiers used the mill as cover and a reference point. Its multiple stories once held large machinery stacks, with grain moving downward through grinding stages powered by water. The site now functions as both a ruin park and an outdoor classroom, where school groups study how a single industrial building influenced an entire community. Damascus is built so close to its paths that people sometimes walk off the Appalachian Trail and straight onto town sidewalks without realising they left the woods. Long before the route became a tourist draw, locals raced on handcars and speeder carts along the rails after work, treating the line like a private ride. Hikers have been so sleep-deprived that they try to pay for food with tokens or rock souvenirs they forgot came from the creek. During trail days, the town has even hosted impromptu weddings between strangers who met along the route, with others serving as last-minute witnesses. Generous residents also leave free food, socks and full coolers along approaches to town, creating surprise feasts in the grass. Churches and community halls have opened their floors to packed crowds of soaked travellers during severe storms, turning quiet sanctuaries into emergency bunk rooms. The Chincoteague concrete ships are 9 massive cargo hulls made of reinforced concrete, deliberately sunk in a line to form a man-made breakwater. They were built when steel was scarce, proving that full ocean-going vessels could be cast like giant floating buildings. The hulls were later towed to Chincoteague and parked off the beach, then flooded through their bilge openings, so they settled and locked into place on the bay floor. The ships were arranged end to end to shield a ferry terminal from waves, turning wartime cargo vessels into fixed coastal armour. Storms have chewed chunks from the hulls, leaving cracks, holes and tilted sections that let small boats and kayaks poke into shadowed spaces. In winter, birds such as the red-throated loon rest and hunt near the calm side of the ships, using the artificial lee to feed during rough weather seasons. These are slim diving birds with long pointed bills and seasonally red patches on their throats that stand out against grey and white plumage. Dense bones and rear-placed legs act like built-in weights and paddles, letting them sink and swim underwater with very little splash. They locate fish by sight in clear water, then drive forward with powerful kicks and straight necks, using their sharp bills like spears. In addition, they can control buoyancy, so only the head and bill stay above water, giving them a low spy look when checking for danger or prey. During dives, they may add wing strokes to sudden turns, twisting their heads and necks sharply to track quick fish in tight spaces. On migration past places like Chincoteague, they alternate between surface swimming and underwater runs, showing the red throat patch only in breeding season. This is Virginia State, a land of hidden wonders and remarkable architectural marvels. Now, if you don't want to miss the most unreal wonders of Bangladesh, check out this video.